Hi, how you doing today? Thanks very much for clicking into this video. What I want to do today is I want to go over the SAT questions of the week that I posted in my Facebook group this week. I put them there not just to give you the answers right now, but also to give you some kind of idea on how to do those questions. Because the SAT is really a skills test, not a memorizing the answers test or memorizing a trick or two test. It's about having knowing how to do things, understanding the language, understanding, have an approach to each kind of question. So the first one I posted was this one. The question is, this is what the SAT would qualify this as a boundaries question. In a boundary question, they ask you about punctuation, essentially. Boundaries being, where questions or sentences end and where the sentence begin and how to make those distinctions. So on this particular question, they say that the documentary highlights several athletes who train extremes. Now, when I look at this question, I do it to the answers first. Go to the answer first is not always the best strategy, but there's a certain process that you can have when you're going through them. For example, I like to go to a semicolon wherever I see it. So answer C, if there's a semicolon. If you're going to get a semicolon question right, the basic rule of semicolon is you need an independent clause on both sides of it. So if there's a complete sentence before it and there's a complete sentence after semicolon, that's going to be your answer right away. So if I read up to the semicolon, the documentary highlights several athletes who train in extreme environment. Don't need to read between these dashes because it's not part of the subject-verb agreement. So the documentary highlights several athletes who train in extreme environments to prepare for intense competition, semicolon. They push themselves to the limits. That's why it's going to be C, because that one works. It's a good idea to go to semicolons right away just because you know right away whether they are right or whether they are wrong. It's either right, it's going to be your first answer, or if it's wrong, it's the first one off the board. So go to semicolons first. I'll also go to a period by the same logic, because a period also has a complete sentence on both sides of it. And you're really going to see both of them. You're really going to see a semicolon and a period in the same question because they're essentially the same skill. And then I would read one with a comma. In this case, you put the comma in with competition, you create what they call a comma splice. And comma splices are not correct grammar. They just create sentences that are not, they create long, rambling, run-on kind of types of sentences. And if it's going to be a dash is kind of like a colon. In a colon, you would have, you'd have a complete sentence before the colon, then what comes after the colon would be something explaining it or some evidence of what came before it. So it may or may not be a complete sentence after the colon, and so on. So that's my process. I go semicolon, then period, then comma, then colon, then punctuate, then a dash, and then no punctuation. I have some more boundary questions here. So again, I'm going to go right to the answers. So you have an answer here, B, which has the semicolon in it. So if the semicolon works, then that's your answer. Coral reefs that are home to a variety of marine species, semicolon. Then after they provide shelter and food for those invertebrates and other sea creatures. So it's going to be correct there also. If you find a semicolon done correctly, don't get in the habit of like always picking the semicolon. The idea is to pick the semicolon first in your process of going through the answers. Because over the course of time, the SAT balances the number of semicolon answers, colon answers, comma answers, dashes, and etc. They do that so you can do the test honestly. And then the last one I posted yesterday was, again, there's a semicolon here with B. This is not going to work because as early as 6,000 years ago is not a complete sentence. So that's going to be wrong. So next thing I would do is look at the comma here. And the comma does work. So it's going to be answer C, which is the comma. And you should always do your due diligence. If you put in answer A, it's really quite a run-on. And answer B, it's not going to work because, answer D is not going to work because, well, C already does, but it doesn't follow the rule of because the colon rules are very much the same as the dash rules when you have a dash at the end of the sentence. Okay, so that's the lesson for now. So thanks very much, and hope you tune in next week.